What is your favorite story? It could be a movie, a novel, a myth, a series, a comic book, maybe even a song or a painting. Why does NYU professor Scott Galloway say that storytelling is the most important skill you can have for your career? Why do Harvard scholars such as Martin Buchner write entire books about the impact of stories on humanity? Because stories change us and shape reality. And while I cannot cover all the important aspects of stories for humanity and culture in this video, I will give you some insights into why stories, also known as narratives, are so powerful in persuading people. My name is Matthias Glaser. Let's get right into it. Narratives, also known as stories, change reality. They do so through narrative persuasion. Narrative persuasion refers to the process by which a narrative influences an individual's attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors. Unlike traditional argumentative persuasion, which often relies on logical appeals and direct evidence, narrative persuasion works by engaging the audience emotionally and cognitively through storytelling. There are several models that describe the process of narrative persuasion in detail, but in this video I just want to give you a general understanding of the characteristics of narrative persuasion. There are several aspects of how we engage with stories that make them persuasive. Can you remember the last time you watched a movie or read a novel and completely forgot about the world around you and the suspense of what was going to happen next? This is called narrative engagement, absorption, story immersion, or narrative transportation, and it is one mechanism by which stories unfold narrative persuasion. I will continue using the term transportation because one of the most widely used models to describe this mechanism is the transportation imagery model by Green-Brock, who built on the idea of narrative transportation by Gallic. This mental state of transportation occurs when the audience becomes deeply absorbed or colloquially lost in the story. When people are transported into a narrative world, they focus all of their mental faculties on what is happening in the story. As a result of transportation, the individual's beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors become more consistent with the message of the story. Empathy is an important aspect of enabling transportation, which requires emotions as part of the experience. This convergence of mental processes leads to the effect that transportation in stories is similar to experiencing something firsthand. Thus, narratives also provide the quality of vivid and concrete examples of abstract ideas or issues, making them easier to understand and relate to. For example, rather than telling someone that elder care is important, a story that shows an elder's journey to finding joy through compassionate care may be more persuasive. Scholars have likened stories to a performance of meaning, showing rather than telling, as in argumentative communication. This leads us to the next persuasive aspect of stories, reduced counterarguing. Reduced counterarguing. Because narratives require relatively large amounts of cognitive capacity to follow the story and don't typically feel like direct attempts at persuasion, people are less likely to engage in counter-arguing, mentally resisting or challenging the message. This makes narratives more subtle but powerful in changing attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. Finally, stories are driven by their characters. Character engagement or involvement is another aspect that affects persuasion. When readers or viewers identify with characters, they begin to see the world through those characters' eyes, which can lead to changes in their own attitudes or beliefs. For example, if a story features a compassionate caregiver, readers may begin to empathize with the caregiver's perspective and feel more positively about the value of compassionate care. Other forms of character involvement, such as parasocial relationships, are also conducive to persuasion, but this process is not unique to narratives. Narratives are ubiquitous in our daily lives, and I will give some examples of narrative persuasion. In health communication, stories are often used to promote healthy behaviors, such as smoking cessation or vaccination, by showing characters who successfully adopt these behaviors. Stories can also challenge social norms and create social change. In marketing, companies use storytelling to build emotional connections with the consumer self, making their brands more relatable and liked. In summary, narrative persuasion uses the power of storytelling to influence people's attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors by engaging them emotionally and immersing them in a narrative world where they are less likely to resist the message embedded in the story. If you're interested in learning how to tell a more compelling story about your product, watch this video where I explain how you can tie your market offering to a story in a meaningful and effective way and why this increases the impact of your ad. If you're interested in storytelling, you can find more resources in the description. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.